All right, Nick, let's talk about the Texas A&M Aggies new head man Mike Elko. Very interesting. I think there's been a lot of comparisons between Elko and Jimbo Fisher over the last weeks and months. And when I say comparisons, I don't mean likenesses. I mean the differences in the two. And we have one thing in particular today they are very different at. They have very different approaches at, and that is the recruiting process. Let's get on into it and see what exactly Mike Elko has been doing different than Jimbo Fisher in the recruiting game. This, of course, is from over on The Athletic, and these are just a mix of a few interviews with coaches that Elko's team has come and met with high school coaches in the recruiting process and talking about how they felt about how Mike Elko and his team have been at their schools and the job they have done versus a couple of these what Jimbo Fisher has done. So I'm going to read through them, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on these on the other side, Nick. But Coach One said the new staff has been out there. They're focused more on the state of Texas, whereas before Jimbo, they trended more national recruiting. He said before with Jimbo, excuse me, they've trended more towards national recruiting. It sounds like they're going less recruiting stars and more trying to focus on getting kids who love ball, quality kids that better fits Elko's personality. Coach 2 said, I've seen Mike Elko more than I saw Jimbo Fisher. I saw Elko a couple of times since December, whereas I met Jimbo Fisher one time in all the years he was there at A&M. Coach 3 says, they've gotten out. Running back coach Trooper Taylor came by recently and watched our offseason workouts. They're going into schools a lot more. And then coach number 8 says, the previous staff recruited us pretty hard, but I think the new staff probably has a better grasp on how to recruit the state of Texas and Houston than the previous staff did. I don't think the previous staff, particularly the head coach, understood how it works here. The general consensus I'm getting from these is they're out there more often, and they have a better approach to things. I'm curious though, Nick, what your thoughts are, but Texas A&M fans, let us know in the comments section below. Are there any other differences between Mike Elko and Jimbo Fisher that you have noticed so far between the two? Let us know what your opinions are in the comment section below about the possible differences in their styles and what do you think is going to benefit the team from those differences in styles. Let us know in the comment section below. But Nick, what are your thoughts on these coaches' comments about Mike Elko and his staff?
Yeah, based on these reports, it sounds like Elko's a godsend. And we talked about the biggest issue with Jimbo Fisher outside of his little offensive structure was that when it came to building his team, he seemed to be just collecting talent. There didn't seem to be a detailed strategy in terms of building a roster. His whole focus seemed to be let's collect as many high ranked recruits as possible, bring them into College Station, and then just throw them on the football field and see what happens. And look, they recruited a lot of phenomenal players, a lot of great athletes, but they clearly didn't mesh well together. They didn't develop under Jimbo Fisher, and a lot of guys ended up leaving. And I think a real problem with that is that Jimbo Fisher, you saw it some of these comments here, was focused nationally, was focused on only the big name guys. Here we've got Elko and his team. They're doing the nitty gritty work. They're doing the grassroots work. They're meeting assistant coaches, meeting high school coaches, learning the process, learning the players, getting deeply involved in these schools and these programs across the state of Texas, and really making sure they're making sound recruiting relationships. And folks, this is exactly what A&M needs. There's no reason A&M should struggle in the SEC because of how deep the state of Texas is recruiting wise. And look, I know you're competing with the Longhorns. I know the Sooners are involved in that state, and LSU, of course, and East Texas has a presence as well. But look, the reality is A&M has probably the strongest presence, or right up there with the University of Texas in terms of dominating the state. And if they can just latch onto that, they can be extremely successful and then expand nationally when the situation arises. Elko's taking that approach. We talk about it all the time. Your first priority in recruiting has to be local. You got to nail down the local. You got to build on those relationships, establish the core, get those recruits, get those high school coaches bought into your program locally, and then expand nationally. Jimbo Fisher had the opposite approach. It clearly didn't work. Elko's taking the first approach, which is the right way, I think the smart way to do it. And this is just further proof that Elko, again, not the sexy hire, not the big name that Jimbo Fisher was, but it's clear to me at this point that Elko is operating his team much more intelligently than Jimbo Fisher ever did. And I think that's a great sign for the Aggies' future.
Yeah, Nick. And when you look at the differences between guys like Jimbo Fisher, guys like Elko, and you see what they've been able to do here, I think it's clear and obvious that just Elko is a more hands-on guy. He's more boots on the ground. I think he's the comment where the guy says, "I've seen Elko a few times since December, whereas I've only seen Jimbo Fisher once." I think there's an air, especially around the state of Texas, that Jimbo Fisher thought he was like better than some of these schools. He thought he was bigger, go nationally. I'll go Florida, I'll go California, I'll go get with all of those guys. And he kind of maybe even neglected the state of Texas a little bit. Elko, that more blue collar guy, more grassroots kind of guy, comes in here. He's not too full of himself. I think this is really kind of the situation that Texas A&M needed to go with, and I think they made a great hire here. Like you said, Elko's for personality really fits the recruiting strategy that you need in the state of Texas. Treat everyone. Make sure you know their mama's name. Go be able to go in that living room and talk with their grandma, have dinner with them. That is all the kind of strategies you need in a place in the South and in like Texas. You can't really just be that, unfortunately, Jimbo Fisher, arrogant guy that comes in, Hollywood, big personality, just kind of just like, I'm the next big thing. You should just want to play for me just because I'm me. So I think Elko has a really great strategy here, and I think we're gonna see them pull in some really big names out of the state of Texas. If not this season, they've already done a great job. I think next season, you look at the state of Texas, that 2025 class, we're going to see a lot of big names from Texas wanting to come play at Texas A&M.
And there's one final point I want to hit on, and you alluded to it there, is that the future classes, it's setting the groundwork, it's the standard, it's the expectation, building that pipeline. Jimbo Fisher never did that. He never did the groundwork. He just every offseason tried to do whatever he could to compete with everybody to get the biggest 4 and 5 star name guys wherever they were in the country, wherever they were, whatever high school they were playing at, whoever their high school coaches was. It didn't matter. Elko's focusing on building pipelines, building relationships, focusing on streams of quality recruits working their way to College Station. And I think that is the smart strategy. That is the recipe for long-term success. Again, it may take a few years, but like you, I agree. It won't be long. In 2025, maybe the first class to show it, that Texas A&M will start dominating the state of Texas again in the recruiting department.